Communities of prosperous African Americans have long been part of Central Ohio, from the West Side, as indicated on these antique photos, to communities like Africa near Westerville, Lucy Depp near O'Shaughnessy Reservoir, and Hamilton Park between Long and Broad Streets in Columbus. But their existence is not widely known. The physical evidence of these places has been wiped out as richer, more powerful forces built up the area. And there are few records to document these vibrant people, much beyond the memories and scrapbooks of their descendants. So I was stunned to learn African Americans once made their home in what is now the exclusive enclave of Upper Arlington.
I was doing research after I cleaned all the cemeteries in Upper Arlington. I wanted to find out who those people were. The McCoys, the Backuses, the Richardsons, the Leggs. I went to the library and I found a paragraph in one of the papers I was reading that said, quote, "A Negro family cemetery was on the land the Upper Arlington High School was built. The bodies were removed and taken to Union and Green Lawn Cemetery." And I'm like, what? Stop, what?
I wanted to know more. I had never heard of this pioneer history.
Pleasant Litchford came from Lynchburg, Virginia. He was a master blacksmith. His wife and his 4 sons, who were teenagers to young adults at that time, were also working the same plantation. When they were freed, at that time in Virginia, you had 1 year to leave Virginia or you would be back into slavery. So everybody's...
So even though you had been freed,
yeah,
if
you had
stayed,
1 year, you had to get out of Dodge.
Again.
Yeah. And so they came through the wilderness to Columbus in 1828. And people were sleeping in tents in their covered wagons and stuff. Franklinton was just a new town. And so this was really just wilderness at that time.
Pleasant Litchford's trade was much in demand in this growing settlement, so he found plenty of work here.
A blacksmith would make locks, they make nails, they make anything made of metal that you would need to build, doorknobs, utility ware to cook. They didn't just make horseshoes for horses, they made everything. So they were really an important person in any society. And he made sure all his boys became blacksmiths.
Way before today's Upper Arlington, early white pioneers such as the Miller family and the William Neal family purchased property and began to farm Perry Township, employing both white and black hired hands. While whites could live wherever they wanted to, options for African Americans were more limited. Those who wanted to start farms of their own found opportunities outside the city, and Pleasant Litchford found a home in Perry Township.
In the early 1830s, I think 1833, he bought his first part of land from the Legg family. And all these white farmers were selling him all kinds of land, which gave him the ability to be the 4th largest landowner in Perry Township.
All the land that he owned was all the land that's the high school, St. Agatha, the Tremont Center, the library, Tremont School.
We look at back in the 50s, 60s, some white communities would not sell to a person of color, but they were selling him land like crazy, so you know that he was respected by his community. We do know that William Neal of the Neal House paid his black law bond to show that he was of good character.
Okay, explain the black law bond.
The black law bond was a $500 bond that you had to pay to say that you were a person of good character and that you wouldn't cause problems.
If you were black.
If you were black. The black law bonds were abolished in the 1840s.
Litchford knew education was critical if African Americans were to succeed. He made sure his own children were educated, and, like his white counterparts, he established a school on his land, another priceless find buried in the archives.
I hear this crying in the deed office, and she's going, "Come here, come here, come here." And look, the deed to the colored school from Pleasant Litchford to the Board of Education.
That's amazing.
And it was like, what? These records, these memories are buried in the archives of Columbus.
Which is really interesting because I think in modern times we kind of think of the blacksmith as, uneducated guy, really good working with his hands, but not necessarily a person of intellect or having an interest in things like education. But this man, because of his success, he clearly had a lot going for him.
Absolutely. He was one of the founders of the Second Baptist Church, which is the largest Baptist church here in Columbus still. James Poindexter also was one of the pastors of that church. James Poindexter is part of the James Poindexter buildings that they've just saved. They were very close, and they are both on the rolls of going to an anti-slavery convention here in Columbus in 1840. They would run the Underground Railroad through Pleasant's property to the Scioto, so they could go up the Scioto to Lucy Depp, because 2 of his children married into the Depp family. So now they had this network, and it was a family underground business.
In 1879, Pleasant Litchford died, a wealthy and respected man, laid to rest in his own cemetery, which he set aside for his family, as well as others in the black community who were barred from white cemeteries. But that's not where his story ends. In the 1950s, the city of Upper Arlington decided to build a high school and purchased a huge tract of land once owned by Pleasant Litchford. And as the building development moved forward, the very old and long-forgotten Litchford Cemetery was found.
When the school board first contacted us and said they had 14 to 16 individuals, we would have located a space within the cemetery that would have had that many spaces together.
Union Cemetery has meticulous records for each of its Litchford graves.
This is the activity from October 31st of 1955, and we're registering a internment of an unidentified individual, which we're calling number 3. We call out the lot and section of the cemetery where this individual is going to be buried. These are actually adult-sized vaults, and then we get a little smaller. So these are child-sized vaults.
There were headstones.
I've seen a photograph that was printed in the Dispatch. That's a photo in 1955. In that photo, there are headstones. They're not in rows like a cemetery would be. They're just kind of in a pile next to some trees and brambles. So, these stones may have fallen apart.
Are there still bodies in that ground under the parking lot?
Mr. Litchford, in his will, actually designated a ½ acre of land for this cemetery. And it was very clear in the land records where that ½ acre was being separated. As long as the burial stayed within that ½ acre, then that ½ acre should have been fully checked during this 1955 activity.
But that's only if.
That's only if.
They all stayed within that boundary
Correct.
of that ½ acre. Would there have been cemetery records at the Litchford Cemetery?
The Litchford family Bible would have probably cataloged deaths in the family, but those records have been lost to the test of time.
Sadly, we may never know the names of those individuals. One headstone that's known to have survived from the Litchford Cemetery is now in the prayer garden at Second Baptist Church.
We would love to know who all these people are. Even if we can't tell that story on an individual by individual basis, we want to try to catalog as much information about the Litchford family as possible because this is their final resting place.
I had to see the final resting place of Pleasant Litchford and the others buried with him. It took a little searching in a far corner of Union Cemetery, but finally, there it was.
Oh, this is it.
It felt like finding my own family. And may those of us who remain continue to uncover their story and begin to honor them as they deserve.